Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first FCHS Lunch and Learn of 2026. My name is Anneliese Kuemmerle, and I am a registered dietitian and program associate with Family Community Health Sciences in Cape May County, Rutgers Cooperative Extension. And today we are going to be talking about protein. So here are our talking points for today. We'll look a little bit about what protein does in the body, what the expert recommendations are for how much we need each day and how much we need each meal. And then we'll do some fun comparisons of some protein supplements and trendy packaged protein fortified foods. And we'll compare them to whole foods that are in the protein food group. And when we say whole foods, we are talking about foods that have little or no added ingredients or processing. Foods like fruits, veggies, beans, eggs, fish, and whole grains, and lean meats. This presentation gives a broad overview of what protein does and how we can meet our protein needs. But if there's anything I touch on that you would like a deeper dive into, please let us know in the comments, and I'm happy to do future presentations that dive deeper into what people are interested in. So kindly let us know. And before we jump in, I'll share a little bit about Rutgers Cooperative Extension. We are a partnership between Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey, the Board of County Commissioners for the State of New Jersey, and the USDA's National Institute of Food and Agriculture. We offer cooperative extension services to support the community and deliver research-based information throughout the state in every county. We have 3 departments: Agriculture and Natural Resources, 4-H Youth Development, and my department is Family and Community Health Sciences. At FCHS, we provide outreach about nutrition, chronic disease prevention, food safety, and overall wellness. Rutgers Cooperative Extension is an affirmative action, equal opportunity employer. And before we get started with today's talk, we would like to ask you just a few questions about your demographics. So we will release the first poll, and this information helps us ensure that our programming is reaching a diverse audience. Also, at the end of the presentation, we'll ask you a few questions about what you thought. And thank you so much for your participation. So let's start by looking at what protein is and what it does in the body. Protein is one of 3 macronutrients, and these are nutrients that our bodies need large amounts of. We use them for energy production, function, and structure within the body. So our macronutrients are proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. We need all 3 of them in our diets to be healthy. And this point is an important one because if we're overemphasizing our protein intake, we may end up pushing other macronutrients off of our plate. Our plates and our stomachs only have so much room after all. So we need them all, and we need them all in balance. When it comes to protein, protein plays 3 major roles in the body. First and foremost, protein gives our bodies the building blocks to make new cells and new tissues. Cell membranes, muscle fibers, collagen, hair, skin, nails, ligaments, tendons, etc., all tissue is made of protein. Protein is also used by the body to make cell signaling molecules and chemical messengers like hormones. So protein helps us regulate the many systems within the body. Hormones help regulate processes like muscle repair, blood pressure, thyroid function, sleep, blood sugar, and appetite, just to list a few. Glucagon-like peptide, or GLP-1, right? That's a popular one these days. That's an insulin as well, are just 2 examples of hormones. Protein is also important for immune function as well. Protein's 3rd role is that it can be broken down and used for energy. But the body does not store extra protein that we eat to use later on in the same way that it can store carbohydrates and fats. And this is an important point, and I'll talk more about this in a little bit. If we eat protein beyond what the body can use at any given time to make structures, to make those regulatory chemicals, those hormones, or to use as energy right away, it gets converted to fat and stored as fat. Protein is not a free food, although we'll often see it advertised and promoted as something that can help us lose weight. But protein has calories, 4 calories per gram to be exact. It's your Jeopardy fun fact for the day. So just like carbohydrates and fat have calories. So if we eat more protein and we eat an overall greater amount of calories per day than our body needs, those extra calories are going to be stored as fat and not help us lose weight. So we want to keep this in mind as we make our goals for the new year. And our goals for the new year might be including losing weight or getting into better shape. And the proteins that we eat in our diet and the different proteins that our bodies make constantly, all the time, we're constantly making new proteins, are all made up of molecular protein building blocks called amino acids. And there are many different kinds of amino acids. There's over 20. And if we think of each amino acid like a different color building block, they are used to build many different shapes of protein that make us up and that make up our food. So in the picture on the screen, we see a protein house. And that's, if we think of it as a protein house, made up of 4 different kinds of amino acid building blocks, 4 different colors. And when we eat protein foods, we're eating the house. Our body then takes that house apart and breaks it down into the individual amino acid bricks. We absorb them, and then they are used throughout the body to build new houses, to build our skin, to build our tissue, to build our muscle. And our body can make some of the colors of bricks on its own. So we don't necessarily need to get them from our diet. As long as we're getting enough protein in general, our body can make those on its own. And these are called non-essential amino acids. Other colors of bricks cannot be made by the body at all. And these are essential amino acids, and we have to get them through our diet. So that's part of the reason why eating a variety of different protein food matters. A variety of different types of protein foods give us all of the different colored bricks that our body needs to build and repair our houses all over our body. And I bring this up because we may hear the term complete protein or contains all 9 essential amino acids. And that kind of language is used to promote different products and used in advertising. And a complete protein contains all 9 of those essential amino acids, those 9 different colors of Lego bricks. But much of our food that we eat, especially from animal proteins like chicken, seafood, dairy, they already contain all 9 essential amino acids. Soy is another complete protein that has all 9 essential amino acids. So for those who are following a vegetarian or a vegan eating pattern, having a variety of different plant-based proteins like beans, lentils, and whole grains provide those 9 essential amino acids throughout the day in different meals and snacks. We don't need to buy supplements that have them because they are already in the food that we eat. And according to the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, studies do not consistently show that taking amino acid supplements has any added health benefit over a general healthful diet. So how much protein do we need? Most of us are getting enough protein in our diet statistically throughout the United States. The recommended dietary allowance, or RDA, for protein is 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. This is the amount that we need to eat to make sure that we are replacing the protein that our bodies are naturally breaking down each day. We're constantly turning over old protein and making new protein structures. And the RDA is the minimum amount that most healthy adults need to prevent the body from breaking down muscle and other tissue over time to provide those amino acids for building and repairing. So it's the amount that we need to make structure and structural components, those regulatory chemicals, those hormones. So to figure out what this means for you personally, I think most of us have one of these with a calculator in it. So you're going to take your body weight in pounds, divide that by 2.2, and that will tell you how many kilograms you weigh. You're going to take that number and multiply it by 0.8, and that will give you how many grams of protein you need to eat each day according to the RDA. And I really encourage folks to do this because you are likely going to be surprised by how low that number is. And with all of the hype surrounding protein, especially with New Year's and fitness goals, it can be something that's pushed for us to buy more of and eat more of. And if you dive into the scientific literature about what is optimum protein intake, what does that mean, you're going to find a lot of varying information. It's really easy to get in the weeds about this. Quite honestly, I did when I was making this talk. And I had to zoom myself out a little bit because so many factors go into looking at how our bodies use protein, what is the optimum amount. Researchers generally conclude that that RDA minimum, while it's enough to keep us from becoming protein deficient, it is not enough to optimize healthy aging, to optimize muscle building. So I've included a really long list on the screen in that second bullet point, just to show you the different factors that go into how researchers consider when they are studying how much protein people need. Age is a big one. There is a lot of research showing that adults over the age of 65 benefit from a protein intake that is a little higher than the RDA at about 1 to 1.2 grams per kilogram. So if you took your weight in pounds and divided it by 2.2, 1 to 1.2 of that number is the general recommendation for adults over 65. It is the consensus of the International Society of Sports Nutrition that 1.4 to up to 2 grams per kilogram shows a benefit to most people who are exercising. 2 grams per kilogram is at the high end. For those of us who are just going to the gym a few days a week, generally looking to build a little muscle, generally trying to keep the muscle we already have, you likely do not need to go that high. I don't go that high myself. And the overall purpose of this slide is to just give general information. It's not meant to give anyone specific medical advice. It's not meant to tell you how much protein that you should eat each day. Chronic diseases can play into how much protein we need as well. For folks with chronic kidney disease, your recommended amount is going to be lower than the numbers on the screen. General information purposes. So we saw how much per day, but what does that mean per meal? According to the International Society of Sports Nutrition, again, 20 to 40 grams of protein is enough to maximize those muscle protein synthesis pathways in our body. So if we eat more than that, more than 40 grams, it's not doing much to promote muscle synthesis because the pathways that uptake and use protein, those amino acids to build muscle tissue, there's a limit to how much protein they can absorb at once, use at once, and make muscle with at one time. So what does that look like? Again, we're looking at real food here. Here's a whole list of what 20 to 40 grams of protein looks like with serving sizes in real food. And just to show you, this is what 3 ounces of a chicken breast looks like. So this is not a huge amount, not a giant serving. This would fit nicely on a quarter of our plate. And this amount of protein can help you build muscle after you work out. You look at what 3 ounces of fish looks like, same thing. Very reasonable palm-sized portion of protein food. So I also included a little slide about protein loading because I have been told it has become a bit of a trend in the social media alterverse, and I wanted to share a bit about what science says about it. A few slides ago, I talked about how the body doesn't store protein the same way it stores fat and the way it stores carbohydrate as glycogen. Given that, amino acids, when we break down the houses we eat and turn them into those bricks, we can't store them anywhere and keep them in a little bank to use when we need them. So amino acids that aren't used to make structure, burned as energy, or to contribute to regulatory roles in the body are taken apart molecularly even further, and then their carbon skeleton is converted into fat. The body doesn't store protein as protein, it stores protein as fat. And protein is constantly being broken down and rebuilt throughout the body. It is constantly being used to synthesize new muscle tissue. We break down old muscle tissue and rebuild new. So including a protein food at each meal or each snack is a really great way to gradually get the total amount of protein that you need for the day. And it's more helpful than having a giant intake of protein all at once. Since we can't store it, we're just going to burn it as energy. And if we're having too much energy, we're going to store that as fat. And as we saw on the last slide, experts recommend having up to 40 grams at a time. So a protein load with a massive protein dose isn't even able to be uptaken into muscle and used to make new muscle. Protein loading also claims to increase how full you feel, but this is true of protein in general across the board. Protein in general helps do this when we include even those reasonable portion sizes at any meal or snack. When protein enters the gut, it stimulates hormones that tell our brain that we are full. These hormones include peptide YY is one, that GLP-1 again shows up, our body makes that, and cholecystokinin is a third hormone. When we eat a combination of foods that include a protein, a fat, and a carbohydrate, it takes our body longer to digest that, and that also helps us feel full longer. So it's the protein in combination with the other food versus if we just eat a carbohydrate by itself, that's not going to keep us full as long as if we have a protein and a carbohydrate together. And another piece about protein loading that I just wanted to touch on, and if you're exercising, this doesn't apply to you necessarily, but protein intake alone does not build muscle or make you stronger. We need resistance exercise We need to be lifting heavy things. It could be weights. It could be heavy, anything that you have around your house that's heavy. We want to be moving our body against gravity, doing push-ups, doing squats. In essence, make our body do work. And if our goal is to build muscle, protein alone isn't going to get you there without that combination. We need the protein and the movement together. The last point about protein loading is that after a competition or a workout, getting carbs and protein in your body is equally important to get both. Carbs give your muscles the ability to replenish stored carbohydrate energy. That's called glycogen. And that's an energy battery that is in your cells that your cells can tap into when we're working them. That glycogen battery gets depleted when we exercise. So it's lost through training. And replacing that with a carbohydrate snack after you work out helps your muscles kind of replenish themselves. Muscles need both, not just protein by itself. And the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics recommends trying to eat within about an hour or so of completing an intense workout. So we want to keep our total calories for the day in mind when we're doing this. For most of us, examples like yogurt with berries or a wrap with turkey and veggies is going to be a great post-workout snack. The National Academy of Sports Medicine recommends that try to eat about 15 to 25 grams of protein within that hour of exercising. And that's enough to help your body rebuild and repair after exercise. So we don't necessarily have to load with massive amounts of protein. And while most of us get enough total protein per day from our diet based on that RDA, many of us do not have enough variety of different protein foods in our diets. The protein food group is divided into subcategories, and the subcategories in the protein food group are meats, poultry, eggs, fish, and seafood, and nuts, seeds, and soy. And I added low-fat dairy because that's a protein source too. When we eat a variety of protein foods from whole foods, we are also getting other nutrients from those foods like vitamins, minerals, antioxidants that support our overall health. And with 90% of Americans not meeting recommendations for eating seafood 2 to 3 times a week, more than half of Americans do not meet the recommendation to include nuts, seeds, and soy in our diet. So these opportunities to add variety of protein to our diet, if protein is one of your goals, is just as, if not more important than making sure that you're getting that total amount of protein that you need, because most of us are already getting the total amount of protein that we need. So I encourage everybody to focus on different kinds of protein, mix it up. It's always fun to have a different food for dinner or lunch during the week anyway, helps keep things interesting. I also like to encourage folks to include protein sources from plant-based sources like beans, peas, and lentils to add extra fiber to your diet. While most of us, again, are getting enough total grams per day of protein, the majority of us are not meeting adequate intake recommendations for fiber. Beans, peas, and lentils fall into either the protein food group or the vegetable food group, according to my plate. And if your goals for 2026 are health related, and you're looking to add protein, feed 2 birds from one hand, and add some fiber-rich plant protein sources to your weekly routine. I have pictured up on the top of the screen my plate, and my plate is a visual representation for how much of each food group to eat per meal to help you follow the dietary guidelines. And I put this here just as a reminder for all of us that as we focus on health goals, your entire plate matters. Not just the quarter that we fill with protein food. And long-term studies show that making gradual lifestyle changes to support healthy weight, support metabolic health, and can support your overall quality of life too. Over time, having a balanced eating pattern is linked to lower risk of heart disease, reduced risk for type 2 diabetes, and other chronic health conditions. So if you're looking to be healthier in 2026, zoom out from that protein triangle and look at your whole plate. I also included the bottom picture is a quinoa bean, like grain bowl thing. And quinoa, for example, it falls into the grain food group, but it can add to our protein intake as well because it offers 8 grams of protein per cup cooked. So that's more than an egg. Quinoa also has more than 5 grams of fiber. So it's an excellent source of fiber. It's just as easy to cook as rice. You can batch prep it ahead of time. I love to do that. And then you have it on hand in the fridge. You can add it to salads. You can make a grain bowl for lunch really quickly, or you could heat it up and it's saute it with some onions and garlic or other veggies, and have it as a side with dinner. And finally, when looking at what are the best sources of protein for us, I do have a caveat about limiting red and processed meats. Red meats have been shown to raise risk for colorectal cancer, according to the American Institute for Cancer Research. And fatty cuts of meat are high in saturated fat, and this can raise your risk for heart disease. A lot of the meatless meat substitute products that are on the market can be very, very high in saturated fat and very high in sodium. So I encourage you that if you're looking for more plant-based options, to flip over those packages and look at that nutrition label. And those whole plant-based, those whole food sources, the beans, the peas, the lentils, those are going to be better for overall diet quality compared to the meatless meat substitute things. And if you ever bump into me at the grocery store and you see me taking random pictures of price tags, now you know why. This slide shows price tags for a variety of different high protein products that we see in the middle aisle of the grocery store. There's chips, there's bars, there's powders, there's ready to drink drinks. And I just want everybody to pause for a second and take a look at some of these prices, and especially the unit prices. The three pictures on the right over here are protein bars that have at least 20 grams of protein. They're expensive considering how big they are. I don't know about you, but in my world, they are half a snack. So even if you're getting the cheapest one at $2.50, and if you're eating one every day, you're going to spend over $17 a week, and you are going to spend almost $70 a month on these things. On the bottom left, we have a 4-pack of protein bars for $8.99. That comes out to $2.25 per bar. So we don't see very much in the way of a bulk buy savings here. Even though the unit price is a little cheaper, you're still going to spend about $62 a month if you're eating one of them every day. And then on the top left, we have a 4-pack of protein chips. Again, similar price point compared to the bars in the box for the box, but a much higher unit price. The cheapest unit price per pound we see is over $16.50. So certainly there's a convenience factor to these. I mean, I buy them sometimes. They are all prepackaged. They're ready to eat. More on processed foods in a bit. But I bring this up to encourage everybody to kind of pause and reflect, especially given how much we're all spending at the grocery store these days. And think about what I talked about earlier about how much protein we actually need in a day and when we need it and how much at once to maximize the benefits from a workout or to maximize healthy aging, maintain muscle mass, support overall health goals. So just ask yourself if these products are something that you really need to be buying. And if you're unsure, stay tuned. So here we have 2 price tags for protein powder. Again, these unit costs, almost $22 a pound, almost $13 a pound. The $13 one was the cheapest one that I found. We also see some very appealing advertisements under the tag. This is a high protein, no high fructose corn syrup, low sodium product. Other tags I saw had other health claims like gluten-free or no added sugar. So these are made to look healthy and appealing to the consumer. But I'm not done being a weirdo in the store taking pictures. So let's look at something else I found that is also high protein, no high fructose corn syrup, low sodium, gluten-free, and has no added sugar. And enter the classic staple, chicken. On the left, we have boneless, skinless chicken thighs. On the right, we have boneless, skinless chicken breasts. So let's look at those unit costs. They weren't on sale, so we're going full price with these. And we're looking at $4.29 and $5.29 per pound, respectively. Vastly cheaper than what we saw on the slides with the bars. Pound for pound, how does this stack up against our protein powder? To get the same amount of protein powder by weight, you'll spend almost 10 times as much compared to the chicken thighs and 4 times as much compared to the chicken breasts. And at this point, you're probably thinking, well, the pound of protein powder has way more servings compared to the package of chicken. I thought that too. So let's look at cost per serving. So here we have the nutrition fact label for a $30 tub of whey protein powder. It was on sale, by the way. And there are 22 servings per container, which comes out to $1.36 per serving. On the right, we have a nutrition facts label for 3.5 ounces of boneless, skinless chicken breast that is cooked. The amount of protein between the two is pretty comparable, 24 grams in the powder and almost 30 grams in the chicken. So there's only 28 more calories in the chicken. And I will comfortably say that 28 calories is not making or breaking anyone's day. Now, we do have to adjust the weight of our package of chicken to account for what's lost by cooking, right? Because we put chicken in a pan, it shrinks. So when we cook chicken, water comes out. According to the USDA, you can expect about a 25% weight loss and your chicken in the pan. So our price per pound of cooked chicken is going to be a little bit higher compared to raw chicken. When we divide the cooked price out per pound, we get a price per serving of around $1.50. So the chicken breast costs 14 cents more per serving. But for those 14 cents, we pick up a few extra grams of protein. We get some added nutrition in the form of a couple B vitamins. We also have selenium in chicken that's not in the protein powder. My favorite point is if we marinate our chicken in something fun, it's far more entertaining to eat, right? We're going to chew it, we're going to swallow it, it's going to help keep us full longer. And then because we're trying to get a variety of different proteins, let's check out salmon. Again, I adjusted the price per pound to account for the weight that's lost in cooking. And we get a price per serving that is 83 cents more than the protein powder, but we're looking at a whole food with the salmon. And salmon is going to have other nutrients that the protein powder does not have. So what else are we buying for our 83 cents? The salmon has 2.7 grams of omega-3 fatty acids, which support heart and brain health. This single serving is an excellent source, meaning provides more than 20% of the RDA of copper, vitamins B1, B2, B3, B5, B6, over 100% of the RDA for vitamin B12, 43% of your vitamin D needs, 26% of your vitamin E needs, and 84% of the recommended daily amount for selenium. The salmon also has 3 times the amount of potassium, clocking in at over 600 milligrams compared to the protein powder. So it's not a bad bargain for 83 cents. Our highly processed protein supplements simply are not giving us the same package of nutrients that our body needs compared to whole food. Oops, sorry. This is another cost breakdown. I'll run through this one quickly. On the left, we have a package of protein chips. The unit cost per pound over $43. One bag cost $3. There were other flavors that were more expensive. So we already know the chicken breast is going to be cheaper. Let's look at something else. So here we have the nutrition facts label for eggs. The ingredients are eggs. Very boring. And the nutrition facts label for cottage cheese. You could easily do Greek yogurt here. It would be similar. I just like cottage cheese and had it in my cart. Eggs are down to $1.99 a dozen. So we're looking at 17 cents for an egg. Hard boil a dozen for the week and you have your grab and go convenience food. Cottage cheese wasn't on sale. Bummer for me. 24-ounce container was $4.99. So a half cup serving, there's 6 servings in the container, cost 83 cents. So for $1, you get gram for gram the same amount of protein that's in the $3 bag of chips, because we have 13 grams in the cottage cheese and we have 6 in the egg, and the chips have 19 grams. Now, it was pointed out to me that cottage cheese and a hard-boiled egg is not as fun of a snack. So I counter with, put some pepper, some garlic powder, maybe a little chili powder, some other low-salt seasoning of your choice on your hard-boiled egg. Now it tastes fun. Have some fruit with your cottage cheese. It's really good also with a dash of vanilla extract and a little bit of cinnamon, and whatever kind of fruit you like. This week I'm having mine with grapes or pomegranate seeds, because they're kind of more seasonally affordable than like blueberries are this time of year. So the last thing about this is looking at the ingredients list and the degree of processing for these items. The chips are a highly processed food. That ingredients list is 26 items long. Our snacks on the right, 4 things. So we are looking at eating whole foods and eating far fewer processed foods and getting far fewer ingredients. Lastly, I want to show you that we can get enough protein through our diet by eating real food and eating a variety of different types of protein. So this is just one example of what a day of eating might look like. The protein portions here, again, if we're looking at them, they're reasonable. Cup of yogurt and the overnight oats, looking at a cup and a quarter of lentils and quinoa in our salad. That's going to be nice, keep us full. These protein sources also come from a variety of sources. We have dairy here, we have lentils, we have quinoa, we have salmon, we have peanut butter, we have turkey, we have hummus. So it's not an unrealistic amount of food for a general healthy adult to eat throughout the course of the day, either on the high or low end. So let's see what it clocked out to be. Nutrient analysis on this clocked in at less than 1,800 calories. It exceeds the recommendation for fiber intake, 38 grams. That's great. It also met 100% of many micronutrients, including B vitamins, vitamins A, C, E, K, potassium. That day met 100% of selenium, magnesium, manganese, and zinc. And we ended up getting well over 100 grams of protein. For anyone weighing around 160 pounds or less, that is getting you well within that 1.4 grams per kilogram per day recommendation that the ISSN recommended for people who are exercising. This is well above the RDA. I also put here this screenshot from Chronometer, which is the program I use to analyze the nutrition in each item. And this shows that we're also exceeding the recommended intake recommendations for all of the essential amino acids. And there's a couple here on the list that aren't essential too. So it's very feasible to get adequate protein intake just from eating everyday foods, which leads me to our key takeaways. We will release the second poll to ask you what you thought about today's presentation. I want to thank everybody for spending your lunch with us. Our next Lunch and Learn will continue with this Whole Foods for Health Goals theme, and it will be about whole foods versus fad diets. And that is on February 3rd, again at 12:30. Here are some of the references that I looked at to make this. And thank you very much for joining us.